Today, we are holding the 10th webinar in collaboration with National Institute of Disaster Management on the eve of observance of International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, which will be observing tomorrow. So we are organizing the series of webinars. We have already organized the 9th seminar on last Friday, and this is the 10th one. And today's subject is very, very interesting, very important. That is disaster risk reduction policy instrument and role of stakeholders with respect to Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction and Prime Minister's 10 agenda point. So first of all, I welcome to all the respected resource persons, our guests, speakers, and also respected participants. We have seen that so far 75 participants already joined, and we hope today's participation will be more by next 10-15 minutes. So with me now we have Madam Tanushree Debbarma. She's the Secretary Revenue Department, and also this is the State Relief Commissioner for Government of Tripura. And we have Professor Binod Kumar Sharma. He's the Vice Chairman of Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, and also he's the Senior Professor of Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi. We have Professor Anil Gupta, National Institute of Disaster Management, as the key speaker of this forum. And we have also Sri Vikrant Mahajan, Spear India, the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Spear India. He will be one of the key speakers in this webinar. Friends, we are very much thankful to all these participants as well as the key resource persons and also the speakers. Those who have given time for this webinar. And we are, the government of Tripura, also implementing this both Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction and also Prime Minister's 10-point agenda since long. And we have also, the government of Tripura has also prepared the action plan at the state level, also district levels, and also department levels. Some of the departments, they have already prepared and also implementing some action points of the Sendai framework, but not as much. And also those government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs and the National Disaster Management Authority is pursuing very hard for getting status of implementation of SFDRR and also Prime Minister 10 agenda point. So we thought, why not we'll collaborate with premier institutes of disaster management, that National Institute of Disaster Management, bringing the key resource persons at the national and international level to speak on the actual action points, what are the activities to be taken off, and also how to prioritize the disaster risk reduction activities as per the SFDR and the Prime Minister and agenda point. And that's why this webinar, we are also thankful to NIDM for collaborating. So we have the number of senior officers and also key nodal officers of disaster management from the line department. They are already there. We hope for today's webinar definitely give maximum inputs how to implement these actions into practice. So without spending much time, may I request Madam Tanushree Debbarma, Secretary Revenue Department, and also the State Relief Commissioner for Government of Tripura, to speak on this webinar and also emphasize on the activities, what is our expectation. Next to Madam, please.
I'm going to keep the mic close to because I am skeptical about the audio. So please pardon about the. I first of all would like to congratulate the team Tripura, who has worked very hard for the past few days to make a COVID scenario celebration for the celebration International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction and Disaster Management. They have tried very hard to make this program a clear success and ensure that within the constraints of the situation, they have been able to build on the strengths that we have of our networks with Government of India as well as states and other organizations like NIDM, as well as uh, from the various resource persons who have come up and helped us organize a series of webinars, um, culminating in today's program and of course tomorrow's program. Thank you, Sarath, and your team for making this possible. I also thank Government of India for such a clear support for organization as well as guiding us conduct these programs. I have joined Revenue Department recently, and I speak more from my experience from the field, um, having served many years in the district as well as the sub. The role of preparedness as well as the role of capacities that are built and the awareness amongst our citizen is the weak link and the strong link, I would say, for our measures of disaster preparedness. And in spite of having said this again and again and again, we see that that stays as the unaccomplished potential or the unachieved potential that we have in terms of our preparedness and disaster resilience. In that respect, the Sendai framework, as well as the other 10-point framework which the Honorable Prime Minister has laid down, is very clear, and it elaborates on how interdepartmental coordination and the role of prior planning and its awareness among people or the citizen is key for our disaster response mechanisms that we will work during the time of disasters. I am very confident that our team will deliver and has been working very hard in science, and in the past as well as in the future have our plans very clearly laid out in terms of the budgets that we have kept aside for capacity building as well as for awareness generation. The seriousness with which we take and implement these programs, I must put on record, and I hope that this will yield results. Um, Besides this, I also thank our resource persons who have joined us today. Kumar Sharma, he's Vice Chairperson, Sikkim Disaster Management Authority and a Senior Professor at IIPA. And Shri Anil Kumar Gupta is Head CRM Division NIDM, as well as Shri Mehran Mahajan, CEO Sphere India. Hope that this deliberation that we have today will be a lot of value add to our capacities that we are trying to build amongst our audience today. I believe 700 plus audiences have already registered for this program. I am unable to see how many have joined already. With these few words, I hand over to panelists and for a very and informative discussion.
Thank you, madam, for your kind words. Definitely, this will help not only to Tripura but also the participation from the other states and also the out of the. They'll be benefited from your deliberations. What you told, ma'am. Actually, the Prime Minister's 10 agenda point and also the Sendai framework actions we are doing. Definitely, there are also some gaps. I hope the participations from the different line departments today we have. Definitely they will ask you because these participants, they were asking me so many questions before this webinar, and definitely they'll I am again requesting them, can be ready with your queries, clarification from the eminent resource person. They can guide you how we'll go about. This is not one person task. Definitely with the multidisciplinary approach and also the support from the others, we can make it up. Many thanks, ma'am, for giving the time to be here. Ma'am, actually, Major General Bindal, he could not join, but he has given the consent that he will be joining in between, and he has worked off with the official work, ma'am. So many thanks to you for this. Coming to next, Dear participants, we have the rich resource person with us, and he is Professor Vinod Kumar Sharma. Ma'am already, given the welcome to Professor Sharma. And now I am requesting Professor Vinod Sharma, though actually he will not be longer with us throughout the webinar, and as he advised us to give the time before so that he can do the deliberation and attend his next appointment. So now to Professor Sama, but before that, let me introduce Professor Sama. He has more than 40 years of experience on the disaster management, and already told he's already the vice chairman of Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority. Friends, how the Sikkim State has gained up and took the pace of disaster risk reduction. After he joining in the state, and accelerating the DRR components into high, and he is also the senior professor in I. And I'm truly speaking, those IS officers, I am interacting. They know Professor Sama, though he was teaching them disaster management, IIPA, and he has lots of the list of achievement, publications, awards, so many things. So let's not to describe all this because it will give the take the time of our webinar. Let me one thing I should say. I such presence, Professor Vinod Kumar, such presence over here will allow. So now to Professor Sharma sir for your deliberation. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting the invitation to be here with sir. Next to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sharad. Thanks a lot for very kind words. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Perfectly, sir.
Thank you. And I congratulate you and NIDM, my dear friend Dr. Amir, for organizing this webinar. And I am so glad, and you have given me idea that I think this Disaster Risk Reduction Day should be taken as opportunity for awareness, for public education, and I think you are doing great job in conducting this series of webinar. So I compliment Tanushri ji and you and whole Tripura State Disaster Management Authority that I think this is a very good beginning. And I have learned this thing from you. So maybe from next year, Sikkim will also follow you. And we will do it jointly on few subjects. You can conduct the program and we will join because our problems are same and we are in the same boat. So with these words, I again welcome all the participants and my colleagues, Dr. Amir, Dr. Professor Anil Gupta ji, and my very close friend Vikrant. We are all working together, since long time in area of disaster management. Today's topic is very important and very relevant. This national policy for disaster management, Prime Minister's 10-point agenda, and today we are having many other documents, which are equally important, like Sendai framework, like the SDGs, like the climate change, Paris Agreement. But I think I will remind the audience that India, long time back, in the high-powered committee, which was set up by our former Prime Minister, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, in 1999. And we worked on this subject. And for the first time in the country, we gave a model national plan for disaster management. And when the act was formed, in 2000, after that, the NDMA was formed. And when General Vij became vice chairman, he asked us that what should be the first activity of the NDMA. And I advise him that, sir, the first document should be the national policy for disaster management, because we don't have any national policy. And then myself and one member, Mr. Mohan Kanda, our former, Secretary Agriculture, and he was member of the NDMA. So we both worked on the national policy and we gave a draft policy to the NDMA, which was discussed, at I think about 20 forums. And then it was, many suggestions were added. And ultimately in 2009, National Policy for Disaster Management was formed in India. And if you see that document, and I will see some of the officers who are attending this webinar, that you have seen, Sindai framework, you have seen all other documents, but I think there is no harm in seeing the national policy for disaster management. And you see that how it is similar or dissimilar, with these documents which are in circulation nowadays. You will see that the main aim, the vision was very clear. The vision was that we want, disaster resilient India. And as we have given 4 slogans in high-powered committee, that there should be culture of prevention, culture of preparedness, culture of mitigation, culture of quick response. The same thing was adopted, in the national policy, that this should be the culture. For example, Tripura, Tripura is facing, number of disasters. We are, Tripura, Sikkim, the whole Northeast, we are having earthquake, landslide every year, we have forest fire, we have mud flow, we have flash floods, we have so many, natural calamities. And I think in case we have culture of this thing, culture of preparedness, then it will be part of our plans, not only the disaster management plan of the district, but all development plans. It will be part of mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction in the state. And that's why I think the first thing which is given in the policy, that it should be a culture of the country, that we should have, in case something happen, how to reach there quickly. And in my opinion, though it is 11 years old document and definitely it will be revised soon, and definitely it should be revised because many things has happened after that. Now we have the national plan. Now we have, every state is having a state disaster management authority. It has gone up to the district level. And we have realized that I think the community-based disaster preparedness, this is the need of the hour. It should go much below than district. We should go up to the block level, up to the panchayat level, up to the individual level, family level. And that kind of preparedness is required in India. And after this COVID, I think Mr. Mahajan and all friends, who are working day and night, they will support my idea that now we should advocate for individual level disaster plan, not only family level, individual level. Because in COVID, in case somebody is affected by COVID, not even family member will come, to see him, or they, as per rules, they cannot go and serve him in the hospital. So I think even the individual plan is important. The family level plan is important. The village level plans are important. And the policies has given a very good, structure of NDMA, state level, district level. But there is very important thing which is given in the policy, which I will discuss here in detail, and that is the partnership. partnership in mitigation, in preparedness, and that is the community-based disaster management, community-based disaster preparedness. So that is for the first time in the agenda that came in the national policy. And today it's very relevant that we are saying the same thing, that stakeholders participation, because all these stakeholders, including community, only government is not a stakeholder. Only police is not a stakeholder. NDRF is not a stakeholder. If you make the list of the stakeholder, I think their participation, participation in decision making, that is very much required. And I think Northeast, I give full marks, to Tripura and to Sikkim and these states. I think the people's participation there, that is the success of the State Disaster Management Authority. They have involved people in taking any decision. I remember that in Sikkim, when we started reconstruction, rehabilitation, recovery program, the first thing was this, that we connected people. Even the beneficiary selection, that was done by panchayats, not by our officers. So I think these things are important and required. Transparency. This is because without that, and the same thing you will see in the Prime Minister's standpoint, he is also saying empowering, he is also talking, public-private partnership. He is also talking private sector's role. He is also saying that I think community should be involved, in decision making. So I think what you are doing today is important, that I think whatever we do, first of all, we should identify the stakeholders, then we identify their roles, and you will see that the private, all these people have very important role. Now there is CSR and corporate social responsibility. Earlier, disaster risk reduction was not in the framework of CSR. But with great effort, people like Vikrant, FICCI, CII, we approached Government of India, and now they have agreed that yes, I think CSR, in disaster risk reduction, in situation like COVID, in any situation, I think that money can also be used. Public-private partnership, there are many mitigation programs which is not possible only by the government. I think we will have to take private sector into confidence, and this PPP is already there, in the national policy. There is another important thing which I could see there, that is the techno-legal regime, because we have so many things, but important thing is implementation, building bylaws, building codes. I think in Northeast, there is need to implement that. Otherwise, we are, sitting on time bomb. Any time there can be a big earthquake, and all these buildings, and buildings particularly, they will suffer. I think in Sikkim, we have taken it very seriously. I will request that in Tripura and all other Northeast states, this should be the priority agenda, that the techno-legal regime, building bylaws, safe constructions. I think compliance is very important because we have so many things, but compliance is not there. So we should see how we can do it, how we can enforce this. And then the last part is response. Now there is, great debate. I am having, APPA program here in which many army people, very senior people are participating. They are brigadier level, in the army. And they always say that army is the first responder. Whenever something happens, you cannot do anything without army. So I say that everybody, is important. NDRF is important because it is a specialized force. Their mandate is this. But I think army is also equally have role, and their coordination, civil army coordination. I think that is also a very important thing, and it should also be part of the policy, because keep it, in policy, though we need army all the time. Any big disaster we cannot manage without army. But if you see the policy document, I couldn't see even one word about the army. So if you really talking about quick response, then I think strengthen local community-based preparedness, the priority should be given to that. And I think my friend Vikrant, he's giving training to the NGO, to the civil society, to the community. So I think that capacity building, that should continue. And I think in response, it may be medical response, it may be response to save people, search and rescue, it may be for animal care, it may be for anything. There should be proper SOPs for the community, SOP for the government officers, and there should be a proper coordination, between all the agencies which are participating. And my last point will be that the sphere India is advocating about the minimum standard of relief. I think this is important. Relief with dignity, minimum standard, and cultural values. I think this is important. And nowadays, this is the time that we should participate, we should share knowledge, research and development, which we are doing, all the findings, and ultimately, because we are signatory, to Sendai framework, we are signatory to Paris Agreement, we are signatory to SDGs. So I think this is the high time that we should realize that because it is our commitment, so every state should have a policy, and that policy should inculcate, should include, all these points, and have their own program agenda for safer state. So I think because now it is clear to us that our mandate is disaster resilience India, disaster resilient states, disaster resilient Tripura. So for that, we should do these things, that all the stakeholders, and only government is not a stakeholder. Community is also a stakeholder. All the people, who are participating in one or the other form, they all should be taken into consideration. And then we can have a successful program in preparedness. We can have successful program, or we can be successful in quick response in case disaster happen, and we can reach to the goal of resilient India. Friends, I have another meeting at 3 o'clock. So, but I am so glad that you gave me time, you changed your schedule for me, and I could see my friend Sharath and other colleagues. So with these words, I thank you again, and over to you, Sharath Das.
Many thanks, sir. We are really grateful and also obliged to your, your deliberation and, accepting the invitation and what you said, sir. It's definitely, the collaboration that you have offered in the next year for the IDDRR with the second state disaster management. Definitely, it's a, it's a bonus for the government of Tripura to take it up. And sir, what you said that, importance of disaster management act. And I believe, and also you may agree with it, this pandemic, COVID pandemic has taught us to look and relook to the the different section of disaster management act. Frankly speaking, here in the district collectors and also sub-divisional magistrates, they also asked me, in which section of is there any section of disaster management to do this thing, that, and which section can be imposed for for these nuisances. and for which section can be implemented for this, and the opportunity of referring to Disaster Management Act has given this pandemic. And what you told, sir, actually this policy, disaster management policy, the first document given the scope for cultural preparedness. Definitely, sir, I agree with you. Without the culture, definitely, we also see the disaster management plans for the sake of preparing. It is being prepared, and next year, we should be very frank on this. The practical, issues. He actually in the front page wala utar do, and you can change the year and submit. That also we face, but that is also very it's reducing. The numbers are reducing, and the culture of preparedness, not only for the preparedness, mitigation, prevention, but also the effective response. Though the paradigm has been shifted from the response to the mitigation, preparedness, prevention, but again we have to think of now how the response will be effective. We should not depend upon only the NDRF. We should have the SDRF, not only SDRF, the contingent of the community volunteers, task forces we can also give, and also you told the partnership for the mitigation, preparedness that is also very important, and also the government's initiative that also you referred the Vikrant Mahajan's initiative, and also persuasion for CSR fund for disaster risk reduction. That is also given the scope to look into then how the fund can be tapped for disaster management purposes and technological regime. Definitely, sir, we have many rules, bylaws, regulations, but practical implementation also there's very big gap. And key stakeholders, not only the NDRF or line departments, many others we have to think of. Many thanks. And I was thinking that any questions for you will not be there, but there is no question so far. So if there is a question, definitely we'll in future we'll refer to you for the reference and also for the response. So many thank you, sir, and hope in the future your contribution to to the state of Tripura will be there. Next to the next key resource person is Professor Anil Kumar Gupta. He is the professor in NIDM and working in NIDM since last 14 years. And before working in NIDM, he worked there, the head or director Institute of Environment and Development Studies in Bundelkhand University, Jhansi. And he is the man of the disaster management subjects. If personally he is very good friend of mine, and if there is any problem issue, I pick up the phone and discussed, and he gives very nice and immediate solution for those. He has many contributions to the country and also the abroad, to the state governments, to the individuals even. And because personally, I am very thankful to Professor Anil Kumar Gupta's contribution. Also, he guided me many subjects, and he has many publications, and he used to write, he used to contribute to many other ways also for disaster management purposes. Sir, actually for you, we have the subject on Prime Minister's 10-point agenda for disaster risk reduction. And frankly speaking, sir, from NDMA, we are receiving, phone calls and also letters, reminders, many times, can you, send a reply mail, all development sectors must imbibe the principles of disaster risk management. इसका क्या हुआ थोड़ा सा दे देंगे क्या? Encourage the greater involvement and leadership. इसका क्या हुआ थोड़ा दे देंगे क्या? Actually, we should be very frank on this. Actually, we don't know what are the things, and also those who are also asking the questions, can they, break it off in a simpler way so that the implementer they can understand, and also we can take some. We are also that there are also many issues are there, and the opportunity to learn from the disaster that we understand, but how that can be implemented, how the things, whether there in guidelines, how there references in other areas, and SDG, sustainable development goals, so though it's linked up. So directly asking the question, can we have at the national level some kind of, the references and some kind of guidance so that, we can do better and understand better and also do better. That's all about from my side, sir. Actually, I think throughout the deliberation, we may seek, the questions from our line departments. There are many officers, nodal officers of disaster management from the line department. They are here because, frankly speaking, what we have done now, we are also asking the departments, you submit the report on, Prime Minister 10 agenda points to state for, for next course of action. So kindly, give some kind of, guidance to the government of Tripura so that, we can do better. Next to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My colleague, Dr. Amir Ali Khan, and my dear friend Sharath, and I see here all friends, Vikrant, Dr. Tanushree ji, and Professor Vinod Sharma साहब भी आए थे?
आए थे sir, actually जल्दी चले गए.
जी, so
he has to go for another meeting.
Yeah, so he's our Guruji. So in fact, it is always really a matter of happiness to see our guide and our friends all here and discussing on a very, very pertinent issue as the subject of strategic instruments. Actually, this theme is very close to my heart because past 2 decades or so, under various fronts, I was trying to understand this subject and trying to contribute a little whatever has been possible from my side. As I was listening to Shri Sarath Das ji about the Prime Minister's Agenda 10, when Honorable Prime Minister inaugurated the 7th ASEAN Ministerial Conference in 2016 in New Delhi, so what was special about that ASEAN Ministerial Conference? Every 2 years there is a ASEAN Ministerial Conference, but that was little different. That was little different because it was the first after Sendai Framework. Sendai Framework came into 2015 in the 3rd conference on disaster management, and then it was the first. So although in sequence it was the 7th, but it was first after Sendai. And Sendai Framework brought a kind of a paradigm shift. I would say that one level ahead paradigm shift. Paradigm shift was already there under HFA also, but HFA was talking more in qualitative terms, and then Sendai Framework tried to bring everything in more quantitative terms of targets and monitoring, evaluation, indicator kind of thing. So that was one thing. Second thing, the Sendai Framework also brought to the forefront certain key issues, like one was the health infrastructure. Sendai Framework brought it to the forefront. It also brought to the forefront that governance, infrastructure, and also ecosystem-based approach to disaster risk reduction. I know Sharath is also fond of this theme. And as a matter of fact, I have been the advisor member to the training need assessment for climate change adaptation and DRR under the UNDP project in Tripura, which Sharath ji was coordinating. And that has been a really full experience working with government of Tripura. And what I had noticed that time, Sharath, I think it was 2015 or so, or even earlier. I think 2014 or so. And that time when this now actually at the national level, we have included health as a national mission under climate change action plan in 2019, but Tripura had included there that time only. So the kind of interest government of Tripura and the team, including Sharath, has been showing on that. Now coming to the point that was being discussed, that imbibe the principles of disaster risk management into sectors. In fact, that is very important from two perspectives, I would say, policy perspective and the local capacity building perspective. Policy perspective, why I am saying, because everything flows through the economics. And sectors are the kind of face, are sectors of development, are sectors of businesses, are the face of your the economic flows. And if we say that the tourism sector or industry sector, within industry, the several type of industry like the chemical sector, steel sector, energy sector, and then within energy also, then thermal power is different, then and then agriculture sector. So why sectoral approach for disaster risk management is important? Because every sector requires a different type of infrastructure development. To some level, there are common kind of infrastructure also. For example, you need office spaces and you need buildings, you need houses, but there are a specific kind of infrastructure also required. For example, if I say that the road sector, so you need bridges and kind of thing, highways. अंदर आपको bridges चाहिए, and then road itself is a infrastructure. Then in if you look at the fertilizer industry, then you need a different kind of fertilizer and chemicals. Recently, they have approached us for developing their disaster management plan. Dr. Amir Ali has been working for Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for their disaster management plan. We recently completed the disaster management plan of the agriculture sector. So infrastructure is there, but it is different. Agriculture, it is a different kind of infrastructure. And there is a different kind of investment also. So to make sure that whatever infrastructure is being developed there, when it is developed, it should not exert pressure on the system that it aggravates the hazard, or on the other hand, contributes to vulnerability. So this is two things. In one sentence, there are two things which are emerging. One is, it should not aggravate the hazard situation. And second thing, it should not contribute to vulnerability. So it can contribute to vulnerability if the infrastructure is poorly planned. And when I say poorly planned, it may be fault with the location. And if the location is limited, it may be fault with the design. It may be fault with the material. It may be fault with the maintenance. So there are so many other dimensions, but in the nutshell, infrastructure is very important thing. Second thing is that whatever sector does, it should contribute towards reducing the risk of disasters. So this is the second point. And the third point is that the sector has to be in a state of readiness to withstand a disaster. The sector itself should be able to survive the disaster, and sector should be in a state of readiness to support the response and relief mechanism. So that is important. For example, when the roads are washed away during flash floods in heavy areas, or in the coastal areas during the cyclones, or when the networks is communication networks are disrupted. And so it is a loss in itself, but it contributes to the loss to other sectors. And it also contributes to loss to, or it contributes to or it jeopardizes your efforts of response and relief also. So how efficient that sector is to keep itself functional during the emergency situations also, or the disaster situations also. So these are 2-3 points. And in the broad gamut, we use a term called CUSP. CUSP is culture of safety and prevention, CUSP principle. So this is very important, that whatever we do, we think of safety first. Many times you visit some mining area, or you visit some industrial area, you find that think safety or safety first. So these kinds of slogans are seen. So basically, it should not remain only in slogan. It should come into our thought process, and it should go into local level endeavors. And so national policy regime, and then because initially in the Planning Commission and now in Niti Aayog, these sectoral plans are being developed. Entire economics is driven under various sectoral kind of strands, and at the state level also the economic planning, entire economic and regional planning is done based on that. Then on the other front, the sectors are then governed by various departments at the local level. So if we move to the district level, then those are not in the form of sector, but then there are departments. So this linkage of top-down and bottom-up approach is very important, because at the national and state level, we call sectors or sectoral planning. But when we go to district level and even down the line, there is a departmental planning. So this convergence of DRR integration into various strata of governance is important. Beside this, here I would also like to flag on, because we have been talking about the strategic tools. So there has been a lot of discourse on this theme, that what are the strategic tools. So many times what happens, that just to indicate that we are thinking a lot, we are doing a lot, and no one has done anything significantly before us. Sometimes they like to say that there is a lacune in the regulations, or there is no law, or there is no policy, there is no tool, and we need to create a new tool, or we need to create a new policy or new law. Actually, I do not agree much with this kind of approach, because if we look at other sectors of development, and we may find that a number of tools, strategic tools, are already available. Maybe those are not in terms of in the name of disasters. For example, the building codes. So building codes are not disaster codes, but building codes are basically the building standards that the kind of a stable, safe, resilient buildings. So similarly, there are a number of codes and standards. There are a series of codes under the industry domains. For example, the environment-related standards are there, water-related standards are there. Then there are codes related with the materials like concrete and all kind of things, and related with the steel and these kind of structures. Then there are codes related with various processes also, like how you handle a gas cylinder, or how you handle any kind of other hazardous inventory. Now there are standards about dealing with the electronic waste, and recently a standard has come about for dealing with biomedical waste, COVID waste of from biomedical systems. So these kind of things are there. So what is the new principle that has emerged? That not reinventing the wheel. So this is important, that what are the tools that is available? We look at it, and if some customization can be done, some kind of tweaking can be done, and that instrument can be brought into use. For example, footprint. Now we have the procedure, the process called carbon footprint, ecological footprint. Now there are some people are working. There is a university called Yale University, and some colleagues, they are working on a risk footprint. That on the same style, can we think of a risk footprint, that if I am doing this kind of activity, if I am constructing a bridge, if I am constructing a dam, or if I am constructing a flyover, what is the disaster risk footprint? In the simpler term, I would say that a new airport is coming near Delhi, that is called Jewar Airport, and we have been discussing with some of the experts that a new airport is coming. So there is a lot of changes in the landscape, and when there is a change in the landscape, then it also changes the hydrological regime. And with the change in the landscape, change in the hydrological regime, and also there is significant change in the land use, the risk regime also gets changed. For example, an area where which was receiving lesser water, then it may start receiving more water. I'm not talking of the rainfall. I'm talking of the hydrological flows. And some areas, because of the landscape changes, may receive lesser amount of water. So even the flood regime will also change. The structural, the kind of the area of inundation will change. So I am telling only one example. There are several such examples when highways are constructed. So many a times highways created, highways and roads, if the culverts are not properly designed and culverts are not properly located, they create an embankment kind of thing. So one side of the excess water or flood water or storm water does not reach the other side, and then it causes even elongated inundation. And in Delhi, we had seen this Akshardham, near Akshardham, that Akshardham was constructed on the riverbeds. Then on one side there is a flyover, on the other side we got this Commonwealth Games Village, and the roads every year roads are elevated few more inches. So the key lesson is that whatever developmental sector we are working on, each sector has to think of to review its own businesses. Businesses means whatever interventions we do, and then within that, what are the structural and infrastructure issues that we are dealing with, we are constructing, we are developing, we are using, and then are we going to aggravate the risk, or are we going, and then how can we reduce that risk footprint of that, and then are we in a state of readiness, are our state departments, our district level department, or the local level units are in a state of readiness. So these kind of things are important. Then another thing is auditing. So we have a protocol of safety audit, structural audit, fire audit, environmental audit. So there are also people thinking that, can we customize these things to look at the kind of a holistic risk audit approach? So these things are emerging. Within we have a tool called environmental impact assessment, which has two forms. One is a project EIA, that is of developmental project. If a highway is being constructed, a major housing complex is coming, or industry is coming, or an airport is coming, so we subject to EIA. But EIA of policies are also in practice, particularly in EU countries and also in American countries. Major policy decisions are also subjected to the environmental impact assessment. For example, a subsidy on fertilizers. So a subsidy on fertilizers, how it is going to affect your water bodies, and then water body, it can also finally lead to the decay of a number of water bodies. So I'm just telling you a very simple example, but it is a full science. Then life cycle assessment. So these kind of tools are available. Currently, we are working with IIT Tirupati, that how life cycle assessment can serve as a tool for integrating disaster risk reduction into solar power infrastructures, because solar power infrastructure involves a lot of hazardous materials, and it is also vulnerable to wind hazards. It is also vulnerable to other kind of hazards like cyclones, like flooding, like earthquakes. So how it should be it can be made resilient. So these are the kind of things which have recently emerged, and that is why we have started talking about disaster impact assessment as a kind of a extension to the EIA process, environmental impact assessment process, and we had organized a couple of the consultation workshops also. So it requires actually a great depth of demystifying this subject. And I'm very happy to see today's this discourse on very important topic, and the experts who are working on various dimensions, like during relief also. Vikrant is here. Vikrant is the chief of the coalition of relief agencies and NGOs. And Vikrant would agree that globally people are now discussing about greening disaster relief and response. So these kind of things are also being discussed. For example, for providing quick relief to the victims or affected people, sometimes we create future risks. Like if we use plastic materials, polythenes, and without proper disposal, proper collection, proper disposal, then it can affect your hydrological regime and then aggravate the future flood risk. So these kind of things are also there. Alternative routes. Sometimes we are required to create alternative routes, and then we destruct the ecosystems and forests, and then in future we can end up increasing man-animal conflicts, or even the new landslide spots. A better preparedness in terms of all these things is very much required. Even reconstruction projects, Uttarakhand after 2013 is taking cognizance of this thing, that how the carbon footprint and ecological footprint of the reconstruction activities can be reduced. Although the objective is to bring carbon neutrality, that is not possible in absolute terms, but we try to bring down the carbon footprint. So these kind of opportunities are available, and since now we have agreed globally that environment management, disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and sustainable human development goes hand in hand. So this is an opportunity that we review these tools which are available in under the strategic management domains. And recently, when we face this coronavirus pandemic, and we also realize that even our businesses and corporates also need to prepare. They also need to integrate disaster risk management and crisis management plan to deal with environmental emergencies into their business continuity and business strategies, business continuity and business sustainability strategies, because these kind of disasters have disrupted businesses very, very significantly. Supply chain also got disrupted. Lot of employment opportunities also got jeopardized. So how we improve the business impact assessment procedures. BIA is a kind of a process for developing business continuity plans. So these are also the lessons. So how we take the benefits of these lessons, and then also draw the lessons from these tools, and make a very, very simpler and modules to which public can understand, the layman can understand, and then the benefits can be taken at panchayat level or even down the line. So certainly talking is easy, doing is not that easy. It also has a lot of challenges, but certainly we have to move ahead dealing with these challenges also, and we have to achieve the implementation or the benefits of these kind of strategic opportunities, starting from national to state to district, and then down the line up to panchayat level. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity and inviting me to share some thoughts at this occasion. Thank you particularly to Shri Sharat ji and Dr. Amir Ali Khan and all the experts of this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind discussions, and so many things. We came to know that EIA, how EIA is now DIA, disaster impact assessment, and life cycle assessment that you are doing, which will also integrating for disaster risk reduction. And the green disaster relief and response, that is very new concept. Then we want to learn more from the Bikram Mahajan ji in his next discussions, and the business continuity planning, that is also very, very important, and the COVID learning that we are also. Sir, one thing actually that few questions that we are receiving from the participants that we'll be discussing, but the specific question clarification rather from the government of Tripura. Yes, sir.
Can we take up those questions towards the end?
Okay. No problem.
Let's finish Vikramji as well, and then we can pose these questions to both the panelists.
Okay. No, I was thinking whether the Anil Gupta sir will be here or not. That's
no. I will ask him to be there.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, next discussion will be the Sendai framework for the disaster risk reduction, and for this my good friend Mr. Bikram Mahajan, he is the CEO of Spear India, and he has more than 24 years of experience in the core disaster management and disaster risk reduction field, and he's working in the interagency policy level, frontline humanitarian actions with the government, even corporates like Anil Gupta sir already told the COs and armed forces. And though it's, what I came to know, he's the ex-army man. He has, the diversified the experience in on disaster management. And he has led the interagency coordination for more than 100 disasters and represents on the governance and policy level committees in several international organizations. And he's an asset not only to the government of India, not in the different disaster risk reduction policy level and and dialogues for betterment of the society, but also in the international agencies, international level also is contributing a lot. Next to Vikrant Mahajanji for your contribution. Also, we want to learn more from you in this platform. And we are really thankful to the NIDM, sending invitation. Then actually, when I was discussing with, Ali Khan sir, actually how, the resource persons can be brought into, then I was thinking to tell your name. Then he spoke your name that, because Mahajanji can be called. And then really, I'm so grateful to listening, your name and also listening from you right now. Next to you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to share and your kind words. I think it's my privilege to be here among all of you and listening to the eminent set of panelists, some of the close colleagues, some of my mentors, Professor V.K. Sharma, Shri Anil Gupta sir, Professor Amir Ali, Tanushree ji, and among all, I think a very good moderation and hosting by you. Sir, thanks a lot for giving this opportunity to interact with also the people in Tripura. I think on a very important subject, and also perhaps on the eve of a very important day, tomorrow being the International Day for Disaster Reduction, when we renew our pledge on the DRR priorities, and we have Sendai framework for DRR guiding us for 2030 now. I think a lot has been already been shared by the previous speakers. What I was asked specifically to share was more on the role of stakeholders, different stakeholders in these within the Sendai framework and its implementation. So I think it's taking it simple. I think some of things already shared also by others, but I will start articulating it maybe more bottom up, and it's bottom up is at the bottom, at the grassroots. That's where the DRR efforts need to get integrated, need to get implemented. Otherwise it will remain a talk, it will remain a discussion, and we may not be able to see the results, see the achievements which the entire thinking and the framework is aspiring to. So when we say at the bottom up, who comes first? I think it's among the people who are there, participants, and including all of us as speakers. I think that the bottommost, it starts with us as individuals, and then as individuals, it connect with us, our families, immediate family groups, our households. That's the smallest unit from where we need to start thinking of the DRR integration and DRR thinking. So to me, in terms of our roles, also is a very simple, very important role which everybody should do is in whichever place they are, where our house is, where we are traveling, where we are. I think the first thing is we should know our risk. I think what risks are there in that area. If all our state population comes to know about this, all national know this solves the first major challenge of the thing is a lack of not knowing what risks are there, and that's also the Sendai framework's first priority. So we should know that, okay, I'm in this city, this is earthquake zone so and so, this is vulnerable to floods, this is happening, this is a possible other potential hazards which can happen here, right? And also the degree and intensity of it, what probability it can happen. So this is a first set of knowledge which everybody should have it, and that's the role when it comes up as an individuals. We should all must know about it. And then second part of it comes up is in our role as an individual and household level is having known this having got this important information, we should see whatever we are doing, be it our livelihoods, be it our house, the very house, the schools which our children are going, the infrastructure within our housing and community we are building in, the places we visit as a community, the markets and all, we should see that, our role in speaking about it, and definitely which is directly in our control, that our own household, our own shelter and other things, we should see that the risks are minimized there, right? Our construction is as per the standard, as per the bylaws, building bylaws, and within the house, depending on again on the it's meeting the seismographic requirement of that area or other hazard requirement of that area, other loose infrastructure within the houses is still there. Children are aware about what to do, in case of event. So this is the next important role which come up at a household level, and then from there it goes to the communities we live in, the societies we live in, how we get organized at that level, what role we can play as more aware individuals and households in those community mechanisms also is an important role. I would say that at the bottommost here. Then going above from that at the household level is we can see, I will talk about maybe the next possible role about the community-based organizations, where the housing welfare societies, resident welfare societies, and the other infrastructure, community institutions in and around us, be it the religious institutions, the community hospital, the community primary health center, all this infrastructure comes up in theory. So that's again is this institution provides the first most backbone of resilience building within the communities. So be it toward the food security, be it toward the water sanitation, the health, these are the institutions within the community which brings the first ring of resilience and the resilience building. And when we talk about, I think there was a discussion about the first responders, the role Army has, the Army responses, and in our country and all. But the first response will always be from this group only. Our neighborhood, the people living in our neighborhood, or the first set of community-based institution will be the first one to reach, before any other can be reached. So developing these institutions, building up their capacities, and seeing that whichever institutions these are, I think Sarath was talking of business continuity more from corporate point of view. I would say that business continuity of these institutions, these organizations need to be into place. Our primary health center is designed in such a way that it can sustain the hazards and it can continue its business. It should have a business continuity plan. It can continue its business in event of a major disaster. So that's the first level of resilience ring need to be there, and that's the important stakeholder at that level, and also an important role they can play on. I think going from here is a level up. We would say is there is so maybe at the lowest level of a local self government, be it the gram panchayat, be it the municipality, the cities. This ring, and also the level of a government professional, government executives which come to work with these local self-government institutions. So that becomes the next ring, where there should be again we look at their role. It's the local level fire brigade. It's the local level, the other response institutions, the police. And the varied capacities there in the Gram Panchayat, we're talking about a lot of Gram Panchayat capacity building that from their disaster management teams. If they're not constituted, we constitute those teams and we look at the committees of various services providing for water sanitation, food, nutrition, health. So they are organized at this particular level. So that in case there's an emergency, they are dealt with that, but not just for the preparing for the emergency. It is we see that whatever is being done, being construction being done, being infrastructure being developed in these areas, these institutions have an important role to look at that DRR is mainstreamed in these kind of developments, so that the development is something which is resilient. So that's an important role, I would say, at a very, very local level. Going above is, I think, is the national governments, the state governments, the intergovernmental institutions at the regional level, at the global level. Again, the UN and other intergovernmental mechanism has a very important role to play in taking forward the recommendation of the Sendai framework for DRR. Some of at the national level, national governments, they must promote national capacity development vision and support that kind of a process. What we are seeing, what NIDM is doing in collaboration with various SDMAs in holding these discussions. So, as Professor Sharma was talking about, a national policy we have seen, and a national strategy. We also have a national disaster management plan now. So, all these kind of enabling mechanism is provided for, which we calling it as a disaster governance, which is the theme of the Sunday, the theme of International Day for Disaster Reduction this year, that enabling and strengthening disaster governance at various levels, at national and the state level, is definitely the role of the national level government. And in looking at the provision of various funds, incentivizing it, provisions like 10% of the funds, the flexi fund, which has further been increased now actually, to so these percentage of resources which can be utilized for DRR in all development initiatives, creating separate enabling mechanism or financial mechanisms for bringing DRR is an important role again with the national and the state governments. So this enabling mechanism for implementation as a governance is very, very key important role of the national government. And then at the sub-national, where the state, I think, where Sarath and his able group of people are working, is to put that the national mechanism put into implementation, linking it up with the local ones which I discussed about. So providing the vital linkage between the national and the state and the local one, and enabling governing mechanism at the state level is an important role for the sub-national or the state level governments. They should look into it, performing risk assessment that inform the assessment. Also, they should look at the capacity need analysis at the state level. So here's a more specific operational roles, will also start getting integrated at the state level. They should look at, supporting the enabling environment by providing the state-specific standards, accreditation, technologies, resource and guidance, for organizing webinars and the capacity initiatives like this, and integrating this capacity development for DRR into sustainable development and climate change adaptation, it mainstream into all kind of development programs and all those things that and enabling their planning across the important sectors. It's a linkage of a reference to the agenda 10-point agenda point 1 also, where we need to see that it is mainstreamed across all sectors. So this kind of mainstreaming has become a core role and responsibility of the state level government institutions. Same way, I think is I spoke about at the bottom up first as a community-based organization, but to facilitate community-based capacity development initiatives and activities is an important role which could be there. And more important one is, I think, I would say is when we're talking about different stakeholders, very important role to be anchored by the state level governing mechanism is that they nurture a collaboration of all stakeholders and let these stakeholders, time to time discuss with each other, build, they prepare themselves. The stakeholders know how to mainstream and how to be ready for emergency and preparedness is an important role of the state level stakeholders. Now, for the government, we did talk about the private sector and the professional organization in a bit. So, what's the role of the private sector organizations? Private sector, maybe be it corporate or it's a professional organization like Institute of Engineers, whether it's the Doctors Association, pharmaceutical associations, so various professional associations, along with the private sector. So they have a huge capacity. They have an important role to play, and these roles perhaps not recognized as much as other actors. But going beyond recognition, their mobilization and integration in the system, if I'm looking at our own work in India, is yet to happen in the real way, involving them in these various discussions. So a factor to think upon is that today's panel also, while we have got a very good eminence of panelists coming from the government, academia, maybe representing as a civil society also, we should ideally be inclusive of the private sector, somebody coming from the private sector also speaking for it. So this is the way we need to see that they are involved and they play an important role, is that of participating in and complementing locally based government-led capacity development. Also, working with the government and other stakeholders to identify where the research and development needs are greatest to see the business continuity and business sustainability. So that the economy is not affected by the disasters. I think is one of the clear learning coming from our whole COVID experience is that the biggest impact on the economy. Now, this may not be, we may not prevent it completely, but it can be minimized by involvement of corporate sector with the risk reduction and the business continuity, which Sir was talking about. Then they coordinate with other private sector entities in general, each sector wise, like water sanitation sector, so various service sectors. So various private sector entities have products and services in various sectors. So if we integrate them with this, the one of the biggest advantage would be that the entire planning for the DLR, be it at the construction time or development time, or be it for the emergency preparedness, we are connecting the source of supplies and the source of economy to the whole chain. And beyond that, I think one of the best the management practice and some of the very good management practice and the learning adaptation technologies come from the corporate sector, and it is the other sector that actually learn and absorb it from them. So if we integrate them, we will have a better opportunities to develop these technologies, and we will have a better ways to see that how we integrate these their strengths into other stakeholders also. So that's could also be an important role for the corporate and private sector. Going to the next group of stakeholders, I would say is about the NGOs and the CSOs. Again, they play an important role. They participate. An important role should be for them to participate and complement. I think a word is complement is very important and to be emphasized here again and again. Their role is to complement government action, in the interest of the people we want to serve. So this is where the NGOs and civil society organizations should pitch in. So there should be a government having a plan and government leading the coordination within that plan, where the states, government and the local and the state authorities feel where the NGOs and civil societies can come up, doing that initial coordination and bringing that space and getting toward that, be it service provision, be it for DRR again. The experience comes up with that seeing the kind of social sector or the civil society organizations we have in a country, their main strength lies that because they work very closely with communities, so they understand the communities, and the issues within the communities very well. And this strength can be leveraged, be it planning for important services, be it looking at the other support mechanisms like psychosocial support, or now in the time of COVID, to say there is entire volunteer mobilization which is helping to identify where the hotspots were, and within the hotspots maintaining the list of people in the contact list, addressing the contact center. So there's a lot of important works, and many of them having technical capacities have been with the presence of hospitals, small hospitals, and other support mechanisms. Many of these NGOs have provided critical support services during these times, but their role also in the advocacy, based on their experience coming from the communities and elsewhere, research and other documentation they do, their role in advocacy and developing the knowledge exchanging, sharing in that, bringing the evidence from the ground, on based on that, continuous improvement of the policy and other frameworks in which they participate is an important role, the CSOs and NGOs play. It's almost a link with that is various education and research institutions, also play an important role in bringing the evidence from the ground. Okay, another stakeholder group is I will like to talk about is the media. I think media has a very important role to play, and we see that maybe I don't want to be critical about the media nowadays in India, but I see that there's a real potential, if the media get involved into it and media is more sensitized, how to to pick up information from the government and the other actors and how to disseminate that information, it can be a major game changer, to say this. So picking up this information on the important day of DRR itself, what it is all about, if debates are more organized around that, if there more evidence building is done by media around that, the more stories are covered, success stories are celebrated, and maintaining a link with the academia and other information groups, and developing and introducing innovative products, for risk information. When I say that, the first thing I started with that as individual, we all should be knowing what our risks are. This can only be achieved by a greater media participation, right? Greater and a constructive media participation. So there it is, the media has a very, very important role to play. And I will make a strong advocacy here that, at SDMA, at Tripura, you should definitely think about and having a media plan of engagement. Then, of course, it's not like that. I think there are regional organizations, and at the regional level, we have SARC Center, and we also have a BIMSTEC. There's other intergovernmental organization mechanism in which the government participates, and along with the government, also the civil society participates. For example, I think it was Professor Sharma and both Dr. Anil Gupta who were talking about Asian Ministerial Conference for DRR. So these are various intergovernmental mechanisms available at their level, participating in these processes, picking up the good practice and learning from other contexts, and bringing that, the established standards and benchmark to guide our local actions, and also maybe to doing some kind of a regional cooperation with the countries like ours. We are especially looking at Tripura. Whatever be our geopolitics, I think Tripura's a lot of things will be codependent on the neighboring countries, also be Bangladesh or in Myanmar. So how we see these kind of a cooperation, intergovernmental cooperation in this region, which definitely is to be guided and steered by the national governments, but its implementation has to happen at there, and the participation in these is an important aspect, and these intergovernmental mechanisms plays a very, very important role in the entire policy development, standard development, and taking the framework implementation ahead. And the last, I think, though I mentioned a bit about the UN international organizations, others. So the whole, the UN DRR and the other UN institutions has played an important role in bringing together firstly the anchoring the, earlier the HERCO framework for action, and now the Sendai framework for DRR. Also the important process of transitioning from one framework to the other, the consultations and post framework, collecting information, building reports onto that. I think the periodically, which is got organized a global platform for DRR, the organization of that, and the global platform again developing, providing those opportunities for exchange across the world. And we see that how we're progressing on our global framework, our commitments. All this is an important role, which is anchored by the UN system, and especially the UN DRR in collaboration with the other stakeholders. So that's also an important stakeholder in this one. I think, and when I'm talking about it, probably I missed a part of it was that when it comes to national government and the state government, an important role also is that we either we work directly to develop the periodic reports on how the progress is happening, and we report such progress during the international platforms, be it for Asian or the global platforms, or we also create an enabling mechanism, to build up the progress report and this progress report for all stakeholders in coordination of them, because it will be act as like a barometer to guide different stakeholders that what they need to work towards. And I'm happy to share with with General Bindal, his very inspiring discussion, thinking on this, and with collaboration with NIDM, as SPHERE, we are thinking of collaborating that we come up with that how we look at some documentation on progress being made on primary temporal agenda, an important role which the national state governments should anchor, and our technical organizations like SPHERE India can happy to support in whatever way possible. So this is, I would say, a very quick run through the roles of various stakeholders from at various levels and the stakeholders I could think about. I think I can share one of the resource, by from the prevention web, which talks about the role of stakeholders for anybody who would like to know more about it through their own reading and referencing these materials. But beyond that, if anybody want to reach out to me or any of the others, I'm happily available to help with any queries and things. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I special thanks to Professor Amir Ali Khan for again reaching out and helping it organize this important session. I hand it back to Sarath, who's moderating it very well. Over to you, Sarath. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you, sir. Vikranji, actually, you spelled very well. Rather, I'm very happy that, your last, the discussion regarding international cooperation. Let me tell you, one of the participants, he could not attend, the meeting, but, he sent the message, to many messages he sent. But one of the messages is that, sir, could you ask the, resource person that, considering the Tripura vulnerability, that disaster does not remain within the boundary of the international border. Though we are a strategic place, bounded with the international border of Bangladesh. Can it be SFDR and Prime Minister can agenda point says anything about the cooperation with the Bangladesh if something big happens to the state? Because he has written so many things. So though we have already spelled out definitely that this is a recording already done, then I will share this information to him. Definitely he'll be happy on this. Second thing is that Vikranji, what you told that the major game changer is the media. And one thing I want to tell you, the today's incident in Tripura, what we did tomorrow, we are having this in IDDRR. And what we are planning to do, we are planning to reach 50% of the population of Tripura for place reading. That's often only 3 minutes action. Our Honorable Chief Minister will read out the pledge of the disaster preparedness pledge of 2-3 minutes. So simultaneously, virtually, we are reaching to the 50% about 18 to 20 lakhs of people tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And I think the commitment of the media since last few days, how they are publicizing the information to the public is marvelous. I should say this is one of the big examples for this game changer, because this is a very small thing, but it has gained the the value at the community level. It's reaching to the community level. Different media, social media, the Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter. Though Twitter, the coverage is less, but Facebook and WhatsApp has done a lot. Second is that the participation of the community. What you told, the first, the importance of the first responder, and then bottom up approach. That is also very, very important thing. What we have seen, reaching to the community. We due to this COVID situation, our schools are closed, but we got the teachers. We have about 8,000 teachers. So let's say 50% of teachers, then we got them, and how they are doing since last few days for dissemination information, safety, and the important facts of all these activity, disaster management activity is really marvelous. Then business continuity plan. And one thing I want to tell you regarding the SFDR, what we are trying to do. You might be knowing the Ministry of Panchayat Raj, given instruction to develop the Panchayat development plan in all the panchayats. Next 3 months. That should reflect the
Okay, let me take over, Sarath. So I think connection is down. So, Bhajan Saab, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, sir. Now,
Sarath,
over to you, Amir Khan, sir. Now over to you, sir.
Connection issues here. No. We had some slight small break. We are not able to listen to you or watch you. So that's why I just took over. So Vikrant Saab, thank you so much for wonderful presentation. It's quite elaborated, no doubt about that. You have covered almost everything. So but some participants' questions are, how much we have progressed in implementing SFDRR at national level or per se state level? You mentioned about reporting the progress and all those things. are some states doing this? Definitely, we are compiling all those information at national level, but which are the states which are doing it religiously? Any thought on this? Vikrant sir.
Yes, Amit sir. Thanks, Amit sir. I think that's what, as far as I know, there is a considerable progress. First of all, I like to say, but I can see it from my interaction with the various, state level government and other stakeholders in my work. I would certainly like to say that I am witnessing a good progress, a fair progress, both at the state levels and at the national level. Some states may be doing it better, and some may be going to catch up soon. However, in my knowledge and something which I've missed, most of the time I attended the global or the Asian platforms is that we as a country perhaps have not documented our progress report onto it. Which in the absence of that, we are really not able to say it, how much and we are progressing, where we are going on it. But when we see as practitioners on ground, I see that there is a lot of good progress. Specifically, if we see citing example to say there is some of our disasters like in Odisha, Cyclone Fani, such a mass evacuation was done.
Yeah.
The number of communities absolutely brought down because of the cyclone. So like this, there are many examples where we see, there's considerable progress happening, but the documentation of that progress is something not I know of that exists. And I would like to pick a strong word for everybody that, we must make an effort to document it state-wise and then collate it nationwide. And Sphere India as a technical organization is very much willing to offer this support, to facilitate and doing this documentation. Over to you, Amir sir.
Okay, thank you. A related question to you as well as to Sarath as well. And if Madam Tanushri is still there, so she can also respond. The thing is that how far can we take it that DRR is getting mainstreamed into our developmental practices? So a lot of development is going on at the state level. You can say your perspective of being the national nodal agency working almost all states. So your sphere is the national, and then state-specific queries to Sarath or if Madam Tanushri is there. So are we able to mainstream DRR into our practices? Like we have various tools, we have policy, we have strategy, we are discussing all those things. So are we moving slightly ahead in this direction? So this is my query. Are you seeing some progress of mainstreaming? Definitely a lot of miles have already been covered, like you gave that example of evacuation in Odisha. But is it the same thing in various states? Same level of development or same level of practice we are following in different states? How do you see it from the national perspective?
Yeah, again, what I'm saying is from my limited experience of observation and interaction with various people, which cannot be holistic, and because in the absence of any scientific documentation done onto this, what I'm sharing up is my based on my limited experiences of seeing, observing, interacting with various people at various level, is more of an opinionated, you can say it, but in my opinion, I would say that I do see a lot of progress happening. If I live in Delhi NCR region, I see that I myself have activated with some of the Resident Welfare Association Federation in Noida, Gurgaon region, and then look at that. Perhaps the construction which is happening now is they are looking at the building standards. The destructive assessment is now there's incidence has increased over years. The utility of them and planning around that. So that's one place where we can say it's happening. But at the same time, I'm not very sure whether the natural drainage is something they are taking into account while looking at the planning. The overall planning happening, be it when we see our airports, whether the Chennai airport, which we often cite example of, the construction is most of the time when it rains or any of the rain season, the airport get waterlogged. So it's linked with close to the old river Adyar waterbed. So there's something of a drainage and other things, perhaps not very sure, are being looked into it. But in terms of construction, the standards, bylaws, there seems to be some improvement in some of the more urban centers. Again, it is very speculative going in the rural settings because again it all depends on the training which has happened for the engineers and the masons at the rural level. Again, this is one example I would cite to say there is. But apart from that, there has been certainly my feeling is that there is definitely progress on into the mainstreaming, but perhaps the development is progressing faster. So, is this mainstreaming pace able to catch up with the development pace? Not very clear, and I don't like to comment on it till the time until we are able to do some scientific study is on the basis of which we reach these kind of conclusions. So, this is what I would like to share in this.
Okay, so a continuation question before I invite Sharad to comment on this mainstreaming part. You brought in Gurgaon example. So every rainy season, what we are seeing in Gurgaon, and for say you quoted Chennai, I can add the Kochi as well, and the Jewar airport, which Professor Gupta was mentioning, is not very far from river Yamuna, and the two rivers are confluencing not very far from the site of this newly upcoming airport. That is definitely a big issue. So land use integration of land use planning with master planning is the key, or the regional planning is the key. Unless you look the holistic perspective, you can't solve those issues of developing the region. Like NCR region is still in boom after this airport. That stretch is coming up like anything. So are we considering all those existing natural hazards or natural complexions of that region which may convert into a disaster in the future, say after 20, 35, 40, 50 years? So its development is going for forever. So this is the thing. Like Gurgaon, we developed, and now we come to know that development has taken place over drainage system or this or that. So this is a very serious concern. So if you have something to add, you can add. Otherwise, we can move to Sharad.
Sure, I think very relevant. I think you're saying that's what I'm saying. In the area in and around me and places I visit, I see there is perhaps an increase in terms of the subscribing to or following the building bylaws, but the drainage is something which has not been thought about in most of the construction. And Gurgaon is actually, as you cited, is a very bad example. It is the city which is developed by builders, and builders have done the planning, and master plan has followed after the builders have acquired land. I think to that regard, I see that Noida is another model where perhaps the land was first acquired by the authority, and then the development is done, and then it's handed over to move on for the construction infrastructure. So, and most of the places is the development is extending like the way it has happened in Gurgaon only. So the drainage part, natural water drainage is certainly one area of concern among many others. Speaking about this doesn't mean that this is the only problem. It's a simple example which we are bringing it. Right.
So thank you. But actually, this is a passionate topic, and we can discuss endlessly, no doubt about that. But only one takeaway from your discussion and your presentation is that you have to integrate disaster management planning and master planning of cities and towns and regional planning. Unless you marry these two aspects, disaster management planning and master or urban or regional planning into together, you can't achieve those successful case studies where flood will come and pass through and no impact on the city, or high rains coming. It's a, you take any city, every year we are seeing number of cities, and of late, like yesterday also there were stories that COVID, the hospitals are submerging. So it's a repeated example everywhere, every time we are passing through this. So thank you so much, Vikranji, for accepting our invitation and taking time out for this. Now the question goes to Saratji for mainstreaming DRR. Mainstreaming कैसे हो रहा है आपके यहाँ पे? If you have some example to quote.
Right, sir. Actually, this is this is not a straight answer. You cannot say yes or you cannot even say no.
Yeah.
Because because you see one of the examples I am saying in the last 14 Finance Commission, the Minister of Finance sent a memorandum that you can utilize 10% of flexi fund on the central sponsor scheme, that again increased up to 25% of the fund for the flexi fund and for the disaster risk reduction purposes. Then in turn what we did, we consulted to the departments, basically the planning department of finance and also the line department to us the central sponsor schemes and how to implement it up, and we developed 14th we identified 14th central sponsor scheme wherein the departments they agreed to utilize the fund for the disaster risk reduction. Then we again what we did we made this thing the guidelines how to utilize, right? But when it went circulated and we asked implementation status after 6 months, we found the big zero. Actually nothing happened into the line departments. Then when again we discussed, we sat down with them and we found there a long gap taking decision and implementation, particularly department to department level. It varies. For example, one of the departments, the RD, Rural Development Department, they are implementing the PMA Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, and within this, the allocated amount, even it is not possible to have this disaster resistant, basically earthquake resistant housing. Then again that is not important. Important is that how the fund can be utilized for this purpose, for implementing the purpose. That is that here the planning department and finance department will come into picture, and the plan has to prepare 1 year back. Before 1 year you have to make the annual plan that has to be approved by the assistant executive committee. Again the fund will flow, and again the priority, whether priority will be given to disaster management or to other things. But we succeeded. RD department, they have developed 10 numbers of model houses, and onto that they are beneficiaries. Number two, the education department. In education department, they have succeeded partially implementing this central, the flexi funds for central sponsor scheme Samagra Shiksha Abhijan, only for one purpose, that is for training and capacity building, but not 100%. We're not 100% this thing successful. Then third example I'll just share with you. In 2017 we had the moderate earthquakes in one of the districts, Dhalai district, and more than 1,000 more houses totally damaged. Then government thought to reconstruct those houses, about 1,400 plus houses. But when we saw the SDRF allocation, it's about 95,000 rupees per beneficiary. It's not possible to construct at least the house in a disaster house. Then government thought how to supplement that fund with other schemes, and within 1,25,000 rupees, the model prepared, and model also accepted by the community, and it was implemented. And today I can say that the SFDR, the Build Back Better, the fourth priority, is achieving through the consultation. What I want to say that policy decision may be faster, but in implementation maybe delayed or maybe restricted with the many formalities, procedures at the government level, the departments. And but we are trying to take it up, and it's not 100% successful, but we are trying to make it happen in all the departments in the state government. That's from my side, sir.
So thank you so much, Sarasab. I think we have to now go for the closing side, because we are already exceeding the time limit which are allocated to us. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation to join us in organizing this very important event on policy instruments, and I think our all the three resource persons, including Madam Tanushree, they made a wonderful contribution, and I hope the participants must have uh, enjoyed the discussion from various participants, various speakers. So, thank you so much to Tanushree ma'am, Government of Tripura, SDMA, and Sarath bhai. आपसे तो जितना भी किया जाए कम है. You are our representative there. So we have, I don't know how many of the participants are aware that we have organized many activities for last so many years together in Tripura and at national level. So Sarath is a pillar of strength for us in Tripura and that region. And thank you, Sarath, for making another program successful. So thank you very much for everything. And thanks are due to our executive director, sir, as well, for allowing us to be partner agency in organizing this very important event on the eve of IDDR Day. And it's wonderful to have this initiative. And as Vikrant told, and all of us are understanding, all three speakers have mentioned that we have to go a long way in making this policy instruments a success. These are just the guiding principles, and we follow all these things in toto. So we have to go a long way, and thank you, ED sir, for allowing us to organize this event. Though he could not join us, but his blessings are with us always, and he's always so encouraging for us to take all these initiatives, take some new topics, and it's definitely adding value to the understanding of the state representative officers from the state government, head of the line departments who are participating in this. I hope some clarity. Through this, we are able to create some clarity among the implementation mechanism of the SFDRR and PM standpoint agenda. These are the keywords. And thanks are due to Yogita. Yogita, thank you. And she is the person behind the screen, and she is coordinating almost everything. So thank you so much, Yogita, for your contribution and everything. Sarath bhai, Tanushree, Yogita, everyone, big thank you from our side.
Sir, actually, many thanks, sir. Let us, though it is already you have given the thanks, but let me tell something for the information the participant of respected persons. Madam and sirs, the contribution of NIDM really exemplary. What we have done, with the leadership of the NIDM and particular intervention of Amir Ali Khan sir, the Tripura became the first state for organizing only lady teachers school safety training program in India. Okay, and that's what happened only due to the intervention of the Amir Ali Khan. He is such a a nice person, and I should not say the nice person, but whenever you call, always a positivity. यार इसको करना है, इसको ये करना है, वो करना है. Always he thinks different. Sir, the second thing is that we really on the behalf of the government of Tripura and Tripura Disaster Management Authority, we are really thankful to NIDM for bringing this important subject into the discussion on the eve of IDDR. Though we are taking towards in a better way, but I hope all the participants are also a response I am receiving from the my phone, that is really interesting subject discussed today. Really many thanks. This goes to you only, sir, and definitely the ED sir, research person, our Gurujis, the Vinod Sharma sir, and our Vikrant Mahajan ji, Anil Gupta sir, and after you made this happen. Many thanks. Namaskar to all, and also to NIDM. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Sarath bhai. No compliments are fulfilling your contribution to NIDM. You are our extended arm there. We always are so confident coming to Tripura and organizing any event, and it's wonderful to work with you always. And the same is with Tanushree ma'am. So thank you to all, the entire team. And thank you to our team as well, our training division, JD, ED, and ED, JD, and training cell, and Yogita. Thank you.